All right, guys. Hey, we all know what's going on out in these streets. It's real emotional. I mean, for everybody. I'm talking black, white, brown, everybody. It's actually kicked off a lot of hard conversations. Been a long time coming. I've had so many conversations with my white counterparts asking questions, which is great to me. Right. I mean, questions that they would have never come to me and asked. And just having those conversations, to me, this whole thing is different. You know, we've seen a lot of deaths out there of our black people at the hands of police officers. This seems to be a little different, though, right? This could be a tipping point that galvanizes everybody. And I don't think it's a white issue or black. Yeah, we want racism gone, but man, we've got to do our part too. Right. So I think having an intelligent conversation, 6 black men, we should be able to have an intelligent conversation about this and try to come up with some kind of solution. And it won't happen over the course of a day, a week, or a month. But I mean, at least this gives us an opportunity. People can't ignore it anymore, which is my point. I think the thing was everybody would see it, even if it was a picture, but seeing a man get murdered on TV, internet, or what have you, is a huge deal. And it does not allow people in general, black, white, whatever, to ignore what we've been saying it has been going on for decades and centuries, right? We can all probably tell a story, but I know I have plenty of stories about, you know, driving while black and having 5 or 6 police officers, 6 cruisers pull up on me. I'm a nice ride, you know, might have my baseball cap on backwards or something, and there's really no reason to stop me. I've had that happen to me more than once, okay? But I, of course, know how to handle it. And in my situation, my son just turned 10 last Sunday. So he got his toys, what have you, his video games. He asked for a few things, and we're still in quarantine or what have you. But what he also got at breakfast was the talk, okay? At 10, I have a 15-year-old son as well. I sat him down, and I talked to him about how to handle themselves if a police officer happens to pull, you know, their father over and they're in the car. You know, my 15-year-old is bigger than most men. So I'm like, hey, they don't care if you're a kid. You know, we can list off several young kids that were killed, right? So I had that talk with a 10-year-old kid, and my 15-year-old has heard it more than once. So I just think this is a good opportunity for all of us to have a discussion, just kind of talk about, you know, our personal thoughts on it and how we need to proceed, you know, as a community, as a country. Now, what you think, B. Spence?
So I think it's a very sensitive time right now. I think these recent events with the George Floyd situation sparked up a fervor within our black community that probably was needed, because sometimes oftentimes what happens is that these incidents happen and they're kind of swept under the rug, a lot of hush money, and the next thing you know, we're dealing with a similar incident, and you know, the fervor and the angst and all this stuff dies down. I think in this particular situation with George Floyd, we did see it was recorded, right? So I think the Will Smith statement is correct. Like, racism is not escalating, it's just being recorded. So now we're able to see visuals, and visually it's different when people see visuals. So if I read a New York Times post and a black man dies at the hand of law enforcement, I'm just like, okay, it's just another brother dead. But when you see the visuals of this man pretty much begging for his life, right? Saying, hey, you know what? I can't breathe. What it does is, like, it puts us in not only in his position, but since we grow up in communities of our peers, is like, I knew my uncle, that could be my uncle. And that man has dependence, and it becomes a very I cried personally when I seen the video, right? And I'm not an emotional human being, but it resonated with me so deeply because I have fellow family members that I saw in that particular video. So I think what this is a good opportunity, like you said, is to have hard dialogue with some of our white peer groups, right? Like hard dialogue, and it's not to combat what their belief system or anything like that. It's just to say, hey, you know what? What do you think about this particular scenario? And what does a black life look to you? And with that, tell me a little bit about your privilege, because we need to be also understanding of why they don't understand us. It's kind of this scenario where we need to be also understanding to why there's so much pushback from a Black Lives Matter movement, right? It's been a good time. When I say good time, I mean the ability to spark up these conversations, because these conversations are never had. Particularly, I was at the country club with one of my white counterparts, and he was very privileged. He grew up Harvard graduate, master's from Brown. What do you feel about this particular situation? Because I was able to articulate the frustrations of the people that are on the streets. They're not heard properly, right? Because majority of our communities are unable to articulate the plight of our community, right? So just being in those scenarios, I think it's a good time. But it's very disturbing to me on how it's being handled by the media, right? And I mean, it shouldn't be any new news to me, but the media has handled this particular situation a little different than I would want it to be handled. So I'm a little sensitive right now during these times because I am a black man, and that could have easily been one of my very close relatives or me in that particular situation. But I think that it is time for us to, as a community, take a self-awareness, test and look deep into what we need to do as far as social economics, building out our ecosystems within our communities, and supporting. I see a lot of posts on social media supporting black media, supporting black businesses, black-owned businesses, just so we can have a infrastructure to get out underneath this heaviness, right? So, I mean, that's kind of, my thought process on it. I mean, you guys can definitely kind of fill in and tell me how you guys are feeling as well.
I agree 100%. Unfortunately, in such a dark and crazy time with such bad things having to start this change. I think Steven Jackson said it well when he was talking to George Floyd's daughter. He said, you've changed. Your dad changed the world. Which it took that one death to spark. We wouldn't have maybe even be having this conversation, right? Or had those conversations with your neighbors, or your kids having conversations with their friends, or having conversations with your coworkers, having conversations with the community, having protests, marches, events surrounding this and trying to get better, right? I think they say, a rose comes from concrete. I think that's what's starting to happen, and I think that's something that we can definitely at least look towards and be like, yes, things very much so need to change, because it's very obvious what's going on. And if anything, now I think we know who's on which side at this point in time, which it's been very eye-opening, which I think is very positive. Like I said, it's very unfortunate what has happened, but I'm so thankful that we can have these conversations. And it's been a lot of learning for a lot of people. So I think a big part of history, right, is to teach it so that way the same things don't happen again. Unfortunately, this has been happening for quite a while, hundreds and hundreds of years. So I think the hope is it might not be our kids, it might not be their kids, but the hope is maybe those kids with that generation don't have to deal with this stuff. It's going to take a very long time, but at least those hard conversations are being had, and people are fed up. They've had enough. So, That's the feel I get, where at least there's a bit deep down in my stomach through all this hurt, there's a little bit of hope that now some people are really seeing what's really going on and understanding a little better, because you'll never really understand what it's like to be Black. But at least if you tell me you want to try or you just want to learn, that's the first step.
Yeah, piggybacking off what Brandon just said, it's really facts and true. It's unfortunate that it took a death of this manner for it really to really take a semi turn. We got to a point in society to where racism is just it's so natural. Like it almost became natural, and hearing that a Black male was killed by a white officer almost was the norm. So it really was like, well, like tell me something new. But this one really kind of hit home, and Kareem really hit it on the head when he said it's like dust. You don't see the dust until you shine the light on it, but the dust is still there. And it's like when he said that, I thought about it, I'm like, it's really true. Like racism is everywhere, and we've all dealt with it in some type of form or fashion. It may not have been as harsh, or it may have been. And I was talking to my neighbors, which are the furthest from racist, so I don't want to make it seem like I live in a racist situation. But like I was telling them, this is the most opportune time for people of non-color to ask all the questions. Like this isn't the time to be quiet or shy or hesitant, because you wait a few months, a couple of years down the road and ask some questions, then you might actually get some offense from somebody and it'd be a situation, versus right now, you're kind of like, you're going to get some answers without a lot of prejudgment on who you are as a white individual. But I also told him, I said, man, the thing about it is that we aren't asking y'all to try to live our reality, because it's not going to happen. But what we are asking is for y'all to try to understand, and to understand what we deal with. And that's where some of the dialogue and the conversations and the protests and things are getting kind of misconstrued. It's like you can't live the reality that some of us have dealt with. And I say some of us because I've had my run-ins and here and there, minimal. But I haven't lived this hard race situation life. And the last thing I'll say, I was telling them the same thing, is that I was talking to my family on a group call, and obviously we're all Black on that call. And I was telling them we got to be very, very sensitive that we aren't throwing our ancestors on a white individual beside us as if we lived the literal situations that our ancestors did. It's very relevant. It's still very true, and it's still very it's still here with us. But I was never like whipped. I wasn't I wasn't potentially like scared about getting hung. So we have to make sure that we keep the main thing, and keep the relevant points that really truly not just affect me, but affect us right now, while we don't forget our ancestors. But we can't drag all, if that makes any sense, and keep it the main thing going from there wise. But I really do see and sense some true change. My number one prayer is that this isn't a temporary situation. I'm not saying that we got to protest and all this every single day for the rest of our lives, but I'm praying that this doesn't become a little fix for a little bit, to get some likes and some followers, and then we just fall back into our comfortable lives. Because again, we can't treat this like we treat Amber Alerts. An Amber Alert goes off on my phone, and I look at where it's from. It's like, well, not that I don't care, but it's not. I can't. I don't feel like I can do anything at the moment. That's way out there in Chicago. I'm in Texas. We can't treat these like an Amber Alert anymore. We got to make sure we do the best we can to be the change in this whole process, and not just blow it off and let it happen for a little bit and then go from there.
Facts.
Yeah, and I totally agree with KB about being the change. Yeah, and I had my own experiences like anybody else with law enforcement or just racism in general. I personally do a lot of community work with Metro out here in Vegas. And I have some people that are very close to me and in my family that are police officers, some Black, white, what have you. What we're asking for is the change to happen, accountability, equality. Not saying one is better than the other, but let's make a change happen, right? So one thing that I personally try to do working with Metro in certain low income or unprivileged areas and vice versa is seeing the person first. There's going to be bad people in any organization or whatever the case may be, but let's hold those ones that are that bad apple accountable for their actions, right? Let's not continue doing the same thing over and over again, or allowing things to happen to make it seem like it's okay for whoever to feel like they can get away with certain things. So yeah, so that's just something I personally try to do, is work close with the Metro. Like, hear my story, let me hear your story, and then we can work together to create a change. You know what I mean? But we have to be, our community has to be the ones leading the change, and then everybody else will join us. That's just kind of my point of view in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think for me, man, this knocked me out a couple days. And it still hurts, obviously. But like any of us on here, when you're really busy, it's hard to shut everything down for a long period of time, but this still knocked me out a couple of days. I shared some tears. And it just hit hard because it's like enough is enough. You know what I mean? We should not be at this place in 2020. We should be focused on bigger things, not bigger things, but we should be focused on other things, things like, for those people who are big into saving the planet, or those people who are big into financials, whatever, bigger things for the future. We should not still be dealing with such prejudice because of something that you had no choice of. As much as I love being Black, I didn't have a choice, right? And I'm thankful for my family, my friends, my community. I'm not ashamed of anything, but just like any person, the Asian person didn't decide to be Asian. The dog didn't decide to be a dog. So
can't say it.
For me, the way I've always approached life is self-awareness first, right? Before anything else, I have to be aware of myself, right? And for me to put my best self forward, I have to be aware of myself and then go forward. If you don't accept my best self as I'm currently aware, then that's your issue. But self-awareness is key. So with anybody, we're not going to say that all policemen are bad. We're not going to say all Black people are bad. We're not going to say all white people are bad. Like Matt said, it's about the individual and what they put out, right? What their heart is putting out. And so, number one, everyone has to be self-aware, including the police officer. Like, you are supposed to be who we call on to protect. You are supposed to be who we need when we can't handle a situation to protect. You're supposed to be an outcome, a barrier, a fence to keep things protected. And so self-awareness needs to be active in that, so that you are being what you were sworn in to be. And just like us as individuals, we should want to be model citizens, right? So we shouldn't want to go out and cause harm to somebody else. We shouldn't want, especially based off of their ethnicity or color or preferences or likes. If you like a different type of music, if you dress a different certain way, that shouldn't cause you to have such angst and anger to where now you're mistreating them. So it's all self-awareness. But in this particular situation, this cut deep, and it's not new. It's not new. I think most of us here grew up in a less than fortunate situation. And so I saw stuff daily growing up. I saw stuff daily. So it's not new. And obviously in the community, we have these conversations. We talk about this. So we've all had this conversation of, it's not new. This has been happening since before we were born. And so it hurts because it's still happening. But the good thing is, like you guys said, conversation is starting to happen. More conversation. And more conversation from the outside, right? We always have conversations. We know what this is like. This is not new. We've had these type of talks. But those who aren't born in our shoes or demographic are starting to have the conversation. Now, my hope is that it's authentic. Because we've seen stuff where people are doing stuff for Instagram, for likes. We've seen videos of them saying, hit play. You see what I'm doing? And then they hit stop. And then they get in the car and drive off. What I'm hoping is that there's an authenticity happening, right? So that, because all of this stuff is movements, right? So in 2 weeks, what's happening? Is the conversation over?
Yep.
Is is the marching or the fight or the burning sensation over to bring about change? I'm hoping that's not the case, right? Because ultimately we want to see real, not only justice, but we want to see real reform. We want to see real change, right? We want to be able to comfortably go outside in a place that's called the home of the land and free, you know, and literally be not worried about, do these people think I'm stealing something? Are they looking at me because they think I'm doing something? Do I have just a little bit of, did I do something wrong? We shouldn't feel that, right? And so the hope is that a real change is happening so that everyone can literally feel this freedom and we can tackle things that really need to be tackled, right? We shouldn't be dealing with this. We're not 3/4 of a human, right? So especially those on the front line, thank you. Of all races, thank you. I know it's a little difficult of a situation, and for those that aren't in our shoes that are still getting backlash for stepping up, we may have some whites and some Asians and these other ethnicities stepping up, and you may have some of the community saying, I don't want that from you. You have to understand that they need to see that it's real. They need to know it's from our history and from what our grandparents and great grandparents and parents taught us is that you don't know what's real, right? Somebody may say they have your back and you don't really know. And so if you get backlash from someone, show them it's real. Keep fighting. Don't stop because someone may make you feel like, well, they don't appreciate me stepping in and trying to speak up. Keep going. Leaders of our Black community, keep going. Rise up. We need you. We need you. Some of us don't have the platforms. Some of us don't have the braveness. You know, keep fighting. We need you because we want change to come about. And so this hit hard, but I'm very glad that conversations are happening. I'm very glad that conversations are happening, and we're all hoping for change.
Hey, Ace, now, I know we like to challenge our viewers. Hey, I've done this on a few occasions. Now, I don't mind if I'm in line, I see a police officer, I'll pay for whatever they have. But this is what I'm asking people to do, because I've actually had the opportunity to talk to a couple of police officers. And man, it is hard on them right now. I mean, there are a lot of good police officers out there that are feeling like, man, we just made all these strides and now we've been set back another 5 years with one knucklehead, and they don't know what to do. It's a lot of pressure on them, right? What I'm asking, man, take the opportunity to try to have a conversation with police officers. These are regular dudes that like to play basketball. They're married with kids and all that. Just have a conversation with them. Nothing stressful. You're not coming in and interrogating them about, hey, why is your police force? No, it's not everybody, right? Have a conversation. These guys just want to fix this too, because you think the Black community in the hood has a problem with snitching. Man, it's a whole different level within a police force, is what I was told. Okay, so have a conversation, man. Let them get to know you, because they don't get to just have basic conversations a lot of times because either somebody needs them for help or somebody is worried about getting a ticket or some kind of issue that they're having, right? So they look forward to having some decent conversations with everyday people. Just show them, like, we want the same thing they want. Everybody wants to be able to go home safely. You want your family to make it home safely, and I want them to make it home safely. That's a job that's necessary in our community. So try to have some kind of conversation with your local police officer, and see if they need something, what they need from us, because that can help too.
Yeah.
Spence, were you about to say something?
No, man. No, I think Nate got a good grasp on what I was trying to illustrate is that, yeah, sure. So when I was in ATL recently, I had an opportunity to talk to not only the local law enforcement there, but the military that was placed there. And I just really sat down and just chopped it up with them just on some on GP, like, hey man, like what's going on with you guys? What are some of your thought processes? And just to hear them, like one of the guys' eyes like shot open, like, oh, you just really want to have a regular conversation. I'm like, look, man, I just want to know how you feel right now, because we are all human at the end of the day. And we understand that the structure of this country has been, unfortunately, it's been at a disproportionate disadvantage for our community. But let's figure out a way to work together, right? I mean, I think that's the major takeaway from everything, is just like, we understand that it's been years of oppression, it's been years of mistreatment, but now as a community, how do we move forward still, so we're not in a backlog situation where we're still dealing with these same ailments 10 years down the road, you know? So no, that I think that was a great illustration, Nate, man, and I think that's all my sentiments during this time. So
Lovely, lovely. Anybody else have any words, even words of encouragement?
Hey, let's stay strong, guys. I mean, this thing has been going on a long time. Hey, everybody is trying to. I mean, it feels different. So let's keep pushing forward, man. I'm looking forward to seeing where this thing takes us. And it's bigger than George Floyd or anybody else. You know, hey, yeah, that's probably the catalyst for this thing. But it's bigger than that. So let's just keep doing it. Yeah, just do our part. Do it in a positive way. That's what we need to be thinking. Positive.
Yes, sir.
Positive.
I would just say, when it gets uncomfortable, when it gets tough, when it gets weird, when it gets uncertain, hold strong. Stay true to who you are. Stay true to what you believe. Stay true to the change that you literally not just want to see, but you want to be, so therefore you can see it. And it's going to be some moments that are weird and tough, uncomfortable, uncertain. You may lose some friendships. You may lose some family ships in this process. But at the end of the day, Wise, you got to go to bed with you. And you got to know that you believe in what you believe and hold strong to who you are and go for that process. And if you can't do that, then nothing else really matters. So hold strong to who you are. Live this life with non-judgment. Live this life with love and care. Don't prejudge someone literally based off of what they may have said or didn't say, how they look or don't look. Just love people. Just love and care for them. You'll figure out the rest. It'll take care of itself.
Just in agreements with you guys, man. Take on the challenge from Nate. You know what I mean? Talk to your officer, or your local law enforcement, or whoever you may encounter. But yeah, let's make change. Let's keep progress. And yeah, positivity and love, man. Let's move forward with that.
Yeah, and I'll wrap things up and just say to Kendrick's point, let's just continue to try to be better and love one another and support people. And you know, the best thing I know for me, at least, to feel better when I'm in tough situations and tough spots, is talking about stuff, to get those feelings out there. And one thing that I've done a lot of since this time is meditate and clear my thoughts and let the negativity kind of get out of me. I would suggest, folks, if you're feeling overwhelmed, try to do that, because I know it's a very tough time right now. I mean, this is stuff that's just been building up for many, many years, and it's from unfamiliar territory. And let's not forget, there's a pandemic also going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's a tough times, but you know, trying to figure out a way to keep yourself engaged and keep yourself positive are important. And then obviously just doing the same for other folks.
Love it, love it. Yep. Keyword is love, self-awareness, and let's turn 2020 around. It's been a crazy year. We need a better. Let's finish strong in 2020, and let's hopefully, you know, get some good change. And it's progress. It's progress and love. Thank you guys for being here. For our viewers, we thank you for tuning in. We know this is a difficult conversation, and just stay pure. Press toward the mark. Love, and cheers to a better finish to the year. Love everybody. Love my guys here. We'll catch you next time from Hardwood Court of Opinions podcast. Peace.
Peace.